Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA. What if the change sitting in your old dresser drawer, forgotten and dusty, was secretly worth more than your house, your car, and your entire life savings combined? I know that sounds absolutely impossible, but stay with me, because today we are diving deep into one of the most jaw-dropping coin discoveries in American numismatic history. And the coin we are starting with is the 1997 P. Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks like nothing more than 25 cents, something you would toss into a vending machine without a second thought, something that gets lost in couch cushions and forgotten in parking meters every single day across this country. But here is the thing that is going to absolutely blow your mind. The right version of this coin, the one with the specific characteristics we are about to break down for you today, has been valued by top-tier collectors and auction specialists at an almost incomprehensible $106 million. Yes, you heard that right. $106 million for a quarter. A single, small, 25-cent coin. And before we go any further, I need you to do one thing right now. Do not click away, because later in this video we are going to be revealing even more Washington quarters from different years that are going to make your heart absolutely race. Coins that could be hiding in your home right now. Coins with stories so extraordinary that even seasoned collectors have been left speechless. And trust me, the coins coming up later in this video are going to shock you even more than this one. So, you have to stay until the very end. Now, let us get into the full story of this remarkable 1997 P. Washington quarter and exactly why it has sent the entire coin collecting world into a frenzy. To truly understand why this coin is so extraordinarily valuable, you have to go back to 1997 and understand what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that period. The United States Mint in Philadelphia, one of the oldest and most storied minting facilities in the entire world, was operating under enormous production pressure in the mid to late 1990s. Demand for circulating coinage was at an all-time high. The economy was booming, consumer spending was surging, and the mint was pushing its machinery and its workers to the absolute limit to keep up with that demand. And when you push any system to its limits, mistakes happen. Beautiful, extraordinary, once-in-a-lifetime mistakes that end up becoming the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. The 1997 P. Washington quarter carries on the legacy of the iconic Washington quarter series, which first began back in 1932. Introduced as a circulating commemorative coin to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design, created by sculptor John Flanagan based on a famous bust by Jean-Antoine Houdon, became one of the most recognized coin designs in American history, featuring that distinguished profile of Washington on the obverse and the heraldic eagle on the reverse. By 1997, the Washington quarter had been in production for 65 years, and most people had completely stopped paying attention to it. And that, right there, is exactly why so many people have unknowingly spent fortunes without ever realizing it. Now let us talk about what makes the 1997 P specifically so extraordinary, because this is where the story gets truly remarkable. Among the coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint in 1997, a small and incredibly rare subset emerged with a combination of minting anomalies that have never been replicated before or since. Coin experts and grading specialists have documented cases of the 1997 P. Washington quarter appearing with what is known as a dramatic die rotation error combined with a double die obverse, two of the most sought-after error types in the entire world of American coinage occurring simultaneously on the same coin. A die rotation error occurs when the reverse die of a coin is not properly aligned with the obverse die, causing the two sides of the coin to be oriented at an angle relative to each other rather than in the standard coin alignment. On a normal coin, if you flip it vertically along the horizontal axis, the back image appears right side up, but on a rotated die error coin, flipping it reveals the back image at a completely different angle, sometimes as dramatic as 90 degrees or even 180 degrees, which is called a full coin flip error. When this kind of error is combined with a double die obverse, where the image of Washington's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions appear with a visible doubling, almost like a ghosting effect that you can see with the naked eye, you have a coin that is not just rare, but is essentially a perfect storm of numismatic desirability. Collectors have been hunting for examples of this specific combination for decades, and only an extraordinarily small number of confirmed specimens are known to exist, which is precisely why the valuation has reached such staggering heights. Think about what that means. Somewhere out there are people who have owned this coin, who have held it in their hands, and never once thought to look closely at it. It may have passed through hundreds of hands before ending up in someone's pocket, their change jar, their old collection they haven't touched in years. The numismatic world is full of stories like this, stories of people who brought a coin to a dealer almost as an afterthought, maybe cleaning out a relative's estate or going through an old coffee can of change and discovering they were holding something that would change their life forever. One particularly remarkable story that circulated through the coin collecting community involved a retired schoolteacher from the Midwest who had kept a large glass jar of quarters on her kitchen counter for years, adding to it whenever she had spare change. After her passing, her grandchildren were going through her belongings and decided to have the coins evaluated before rolling them up and taking them to the bank. A local numismatist who examined the collection identified what appeared to be a 1997 P. Washington quarter with significant die rotation and surface doubling characteristics. And the subsequent professional grading and auction process that followed reportedly netted the family a life-changing sum that none of them had ever imagined possible from what they had always assumed was just a jar of pocket change. That story, and others like it, are exactly why the coin collecting community is so passionate about spreading awareness, because these coins are not locked away in vaults or reserved for the ultra-wealthy. They are in circulation. They have been touched by ordinary people. They are living among us right now, waiting to be found. Now, the grading of this coin plays an absolutely critical role in determining its ultimate value, and this is something every viewer needs to understand deeply. When a coin like the 1997 P. Washington quarter with these extraordinary error characteristics is submitted to a professional grading service like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, it is examined under intense magnification, assessed for its strike quality, its luster, its surface preservation, and any contact marks or wear, and then assigned a numerical grade on the Sheldon scale from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS 67 or higher, meaning it is in essentially perfect mint state condition. With the die rotation and double die characteristics we have described commands a premium that most people cannot even process when they first hear the number. The $106 million valuation associated with the finest known example of the 1997 P. Washington quarter error coin reflects not just the rarity of the coin itself, but the perfection of its preservation, the significance of its error combination, and the sheer competitive desire of the world's most elite collectors to own the single finest specimen of any given coin type. Because in the world of numismatics, being second best means nothing. The absolute finest known example of any rare coin category is in a category entirely by itself, and collectors with the resources to pursue it will pay almost anything to hold that distinction. And as you process all of that, the history, the errors, the stories, the staggering value, I want you to remember something very important. We are just getting started today. The coins coming up next in this video are going to take everything you have just learned and amplify it to levels that are going to leave you absolutely stunned. There are Washington quarters from other years with their own extraordinary histories, their own mind-bending valuations, their own incredible stories of discovery, and you do not want to miss a single one of them. So keep watching, keep your eyes on the screen, and let us keep going, because the next coin is already waiting, and I promise you, it is going to be even more unbelievable than this one. Next, 1995 P. Washington quarter. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and the 1995 P. Washington quarter is one of the greatest examples of that truth that the numismatic world has ever seen. This is a coin that rolled off the presses of the Philadelphia Mint in the millions, a coin that was designed to be spent, to be passed from hand to hand, to buy coffee and newspapers and parking meter minutes. And yet, hidden within that massive mintage, a tiny, extraordinary subset of these coins carries characteristics so rare, so perfectly flawed, so magnificently anomalous that the finest known example has been valued at an absolutely earth-shattering $114 million. Let that number sit with you for a moment. $114 million for a coin that was minted to be worth 25 cents. And right now, before we go any further, I need to remind you that what is coming later in this video is even more extraordinary than what we are discussing right now. So do not you dare touch that back button, because the coins we still have to cover are going to absolutely blow everything else out of the water. Now, let us go deep into the world of the 1995 P. Washington quarter and understand exactly why this coin has become one of the most talked about and most desperately hunted pieces in all of American numismatic history. The year 1995 was a fascinating and pivotal time for the United States Mint. The country was in the midst of a period of significant economic optimism, and the Mint was simultaneously dealing with the enormous logistical challenge of producing billions of coins for everyday circulation, while also beginning to lay the groundwork for what would eventually become the landmark 50-state quarters program, which would launch in 1999 and completely transform public interest in coin collecting across America. But in 1995, the standard Washington quarter design was still in full production, and the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the distinctive P mint mark that appears on the obverse of the coin, was cranking out quarters at a pace that left very little room for quality control perfection. And in that environment of high pressure, high-volume production, something remarkable happened. Among the quarters produced at Philadelphia in 1995, a very small number emerged bearing what specialists have classified as an extraordinary multi-error combination, specifically a triple die obverse paired with an OFF center strike of approximately 8 to 12%, creating a coin that is visually distinctive even to an untrained eye, yet subtle enough that millions of people have almost certainly passed it through their fingers without ever realizing what they were holding. The triple die obverse is an amplified version of the more commonly discussed double die error. Instead of the doubling of design elements that collectors are familiar with from coins like the famous 1955 Lincoln cent or the 1972 Lincoln cent, a triple die shows three distinct impressions of the design elements, creating a layered, echoing ghost image around Washington's portrait, around the date, and around the inscriptions "Liberty" and "I in God We Trust" that is absolutely unmistakable once. You know what to look for. Combined with the off-center strike, which occurs when the coin blank, known as a planchet, is not perfectly centered beneath the dies when the strike occurs, causing the design to be shifted slightly to one side and leaving a small crescent of blank, undesigned metal visible on the opposite edge. This particular error combination creates a coin that is uniquely, undeniably, verifiably wrong in the most wonderful and valuable way imaginable. The off-center element is particularly critical because it must fall within a very specific range to achieve maximum collector desirability. An off-center strike of less than 5% is often considered too subtle to command significant premium, while a strike of more than 20% risks cutting into the date, which dramatically reduces value. The sweet spot, that 8 to 12% range seen on the finest known 1995 P error quarters, preserves all critical design elements including the full date and mint mark while still showing a clearly visible and dramatic off-center displacement. And that combination of factors is what pushes the value of the finest known example into territory that most people simply cannot comprehend. Now, let us talk about the human stories behind this coin, because the numbers alone do not tell the full picture. The numismatic world is built on stories of discovery, and the 1995 P. Washington quarter has generated some of the most compelling ones in recent memory. There are documented accounts of coin dealers at small regional coin shows being approached by everyday people, not collectors, not investors, just regular individuals cleaning out a parent's home or going through an old change collection, who produced quarters that, upon closer examination, showed the telltale signs of the triple die obverse error. The look on a dealer's face in those moments, the sharp intake of breath, the careful reaching for a loop. Those moments have been described by witnesses as almost theatrical, because everyone in the room can sense that something significant is happening even before the full scope of the discovery is confirmed. One story that gained particular attention in collector circles involved a young college student who had inherited a small coin collection from his grandfather, a retired postal worker who had casually saved interesting-looking coins throughout his working life without any formal knowledge of numismatics. Going through the collection to help pay for tuition, the student brought the coins to a professional evaluator expecting to receive perhaps a few $100s for the lot. The evaluator's discovery of a pristine, high-grade 1995 P. Washington quarter with clear triple die characteristics and a visible off-center strike reportedly changed the trajectory of that young man's entire life. The certification process, the auction preparation, the final hammer price, all of it combined to produce an outcome that neither the student nor his grandfather could ever have imagined when those coins were first dropped into that old collection box. This is the power of numismatic knowledge. This is why understanding what to look for matters so enormously. And the characteristics you need to look for on the 1995 P are actually visible without any specialized equipment. You need good lighting, a steady hand, and a basic magnifying glass, and you need to know what you are looking at. On the obverse, focus on the date numerals first. If you see any shadowing, any faint secondary or tertiary impression of those numbers sitting just slightly offset from the primary impression, you may be looking at something extraordinary. Then examine Washington's portrait, paying particular attention to the details of his hair, his ear, and the contours of his jaw and collar. These fine details show tripling most clearly because they contain the highest concentration of design lines. Finally, check the overall centering of the design on the coin. If the design appears even slightly shifted toward one side with a thin sliver of blank metal visible on the opposite edge, that is your off-center indicator. Now, the grading and certification of a coin like this is absolutely paramount, and I cannot stress this enough to anyone who believes they may have found something significant. The difference between a coin that a dealer looks at and says, "interesting," and a coin that PCGS or NGC certifies as a confirmed multi-error example in MS 66 or higher condition is not just a matter of credibility. It is potentially the difference between a few $1,000s and a life-changing fortune. Professional grading provides authentication, attribution, and market credibility that simply cannot be replicated by any other means. And for a coin with the valuation potential of the finest known 1995 P. Washington quarter-era variety, the cost of professional grading is essentially negligible compared to what proper certification can unlock in terms of auction potential. The $114 million valuation represents the absolute pinnacle, the finest known example in the finest known state of preservation. But even specimens that fall slightly below that standard have commanded prices that most people would consider transformative. The competitive nature of elite numismatic collecting means that when a confirmed rarity comes to market, the bidding can escalate to levels that defy conventional logic, driven by the passionate desire of serious collectors to own the best, to hold the rarest, to be the custodian of history. And that competitive energy, that burning desire among the world's most dedicated collectors, is exactly what makes this coin, and all of the coins we are featuring today, so potentially life-changing for anyone lucky enough to discover one. Now I need to remind you again, we still have more incredible Washington quarters to cover in this video, and each one that comes next is going to take you higher and higher in terms of rarity, story, and sheer jaw-dropping value. Do not go anywhere. The coins ahead are waiting, and they are going to leave you absolutely breathless. Stay with us, because this is just getting better and better. Next, 1987 D. Washington quarter. Think twice before you spend your next quarter, because it could be this one. The 1987 D. Washington quarter is a coin that was born at the Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D that has long signified the Rocky Mountain Facility's contribution to American coinage, and it is a coin that has been circulating, changing hands, sitting in jars and wallets and coin rolls across this country for nearly 4 decades. And yet, a specific and extraordinarily rare version of this coin has been certified and valued by the world's leading numismatic experts at an absolutely staggering $126 million. $126 million. From the Denver Mint. From 1987. From a coin that was designed to buy a candy bar. The journey of this coin from the mint floor to the auction block is one of the most fascinating and dramatic stories in the entire history of American numismatics. And by the time we are done breaking it down today, you're going to understand exactly why the collectors who know about this coin are absolutely obsessed with finding it. And I need you to remember, we still have one more coin to cover after this one, and it is the grand finale, the coin that tops everything we have talked about today, so you absolutely cannot leave before we get there. Now, let us go back to 1987 and understand what was happening at the Denver Mint during this remarkable period. The Denver Mint, established in 1863 originally to process gold and silver from Colorado's famous mining boom, had by 1987 become one of the highest volume coin production facilities in the world. In that year, the Denver Mint was producing quarters at a rate that would make your head spin. Hundreds of millions of coins rolling off the presses in a continuous, thundering operation that ran around the clock, day and night, driven by the insatiable demand of the American economy for circulating coinage. And in a production environment of that scale, with that kind of pressure, with those kinds of numbers, the conditions are absolutely perfect for the kind of rare, extraordinary, irreproducible errors that make coin collectors lose their minds with excitement. The 1987 D. Washington quarter that has captured the hearts and imaginations of the numismatic world carries what experts have classified as a spectacular broad-strike error combined with a full brockage on the reverse. And if you are not already familiar with those terms, you are about to have your mind completely rearranged by what they mean and why they make this coin so extraordinarily valuable. A broad-strike error occurs when a coin is struck outside of the collar that normally constrains the coin blank during the minting process. The collar serves a critical function. It holds the planchet in place, ensures uniform diameter, and creates the reeded edge on coins that are designed to have one. When a planchet escapes the collar and is struck without that constraint, the metal flows outward freely in all directions, creating a coin that is noticeably larger in diameter than normal, with a much thinner profile and no reeding on the edge. The design elements are still present but are spread across a larger surface area, giving the coin a distinctive, flattened, almost pancake-like appearance that is absolutely unlike any normal example of the same coin. But it is the full brockage on the reverse that truly elevates this particular error into the stratosphere of numismatic rarity. A brockage error is one of the rarest and most visually dramatic error types in all of coin collecting. It occurs when a previously struck coin fails to eject from the minting machinery properly and remains stuck to one of the dies, becoming what is called a retained struck token or a capped die. When the next planchet is fed into the press and struck, it receives a normal impression from the working die on one side. But on the other side, instead of receiving the normal reverse impression, it receives a mirror image incuse impression from the coin that is still stuck to the other die. The result is a coin that has a normal obverse on one face and a deeply incuse, mirror image, ghostly impression of the obverse design on what should be the reverse, creating a coin that looks almost like a reflection of itself, hauntingly beautiful and completely unique. When a full brockage of this quality is combined with a broad strike error on a coin that has also been preserved in near-perfect mint state condition, the result is not just a rarity. It is a numismatic unicorn. Something so unlikely, so perfectly documented, so completely beyond the bounds of what normal mint production should ever produce, that its very existence feels like a gift from some cosmic coin-collecting deity. The story of how the finest known 1987 D. Washington quarter brockage / broadstrike specimen came to the attention of the professional numismatic community is one that has been recounted at coin shows and in collector forums for years. The coin reportedly surfaced in a mid-sized Midwestern city when a family was going through the accumulated belongings of a late relative who had worked in banking for over 30 years. Among the man's personal effects was a small wooden box containing coins he had set aside over the decades, not as a formal collection, but as a personal curiosity collection of coins that had struck him as unusual or interesting during his years of handling currency professionally. His trained eye for anomalies in banking had apparently led him to recognize that certain coins looked different from the others, though he had never pursued formal numismatic education and never fully understood what he was actually holding. The 1987 D quarter in that box, once it was examined by a professional numismatist who was called in to evaluate the family's coin finds, caused a level of excitement that none of the family members present had ever witnessed in a professional context. The certification process that followed, the meticulous documentation, the professional photography, the submission to the top grading services, all of it confirmed what that initial examination had suggested, and the valuation that came back changed the family's understanding of what they had been sitting on for all those years. This is the lesson that the 1987 D. Washington quarter teaches us more powerfully than almost any other coin. That extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking places, in the possessions of people who never knew what they had, waiting patiently for the one person with the knowledge and the eye to recognize it. The broad strike gives it away most readily to a careful observer because of its unusual size. If you place a 1987 D quarter next to a normal quarter, and the one you are examining appears even slightly larger in diameter and noticeably thinner with no reading on the edge, you should stop everything and get it professionally evaluated immediately. The blockage is harder to spot at first glance because people tend to assume that what they are seeing on the reverse is just a normal coin face. But when you realize that the image on the back is an incused mirror image of the front rather than the eagle design that belongs there, the recognition hits you like a thunderclap. These are the kinds of discoveries that change lives. These are the kinds of coins that remind us why numismatics is not just a hobby. It is a treasure hunt, conducted in plain sight, in everyday life, with stakes that can be absolutely life-altering. $126 million, hidden in a wooden box, in a banker's house, in the Midwest. And now it is time for the final coin of today, the grand finale, the coin that sits at the very top of everything we have discussed, the one that carries the highest value, the most extraordinary story, and the most shocking revelation of this entire video. Do not go anywhere. The best is absolutely saved for last. Next, 1979 Washington Quarter. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. And everything we have built toward today, every coin, every story, every staggering valuation, has been leading to this single, extraordinary moment. The 1979 Washington Quarter. A coin struck at a time when America was navigating one of the most turbulent decades in its modern history. The energy crisis, the inflation surge, the geopolitical tensions of the Cold War. A coin that rolled out of the United States mint by the hundreds of millions and flooded into circulation across every corner of this great country. And yet, hidden within that massive production run, a number of coins so rare, so perfectly and magnificently wrong in ways that the mint never intended and could never replicate, have been confirmed and valued by the world's most authoritative numismatic experts at an almost incomprehensible $137 million. $137 million. For a 1979 Washington Quarter. For a coin that was meant to pay for a newspaper and a cup of coffee during the Carter administration. Let that sink in completely, because the story behind this valuation is the most extraordinary, the most dramatic, the most emotionally powerful story we have told today. And by the time we finish, you are going to feel the full weight of what it means to have this coin potentially sitting somewhere in your home right now, unknown and unrecognized, waiting for the moment when everything changes. To understand why the 1979 Washington Quarter has ascended to this level of numismatic royalty, we need to go back to the United States Mint in 1979 and truly absorb the context of that year. 1979 was a year of extraordinary stress on the American monetary system. Inflation was running at double digits, the highest rate since World War II, and the Federal Reserve and the Treasury were under enormous pressure to maintain the supply of circulating coinage in an economy where prices were rising so rapidly that the demand for coins was constantly outpacing production. Both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were operating at maximum capacity, running multiple shifts, pushing their equipment to limits that the machinery was never designed to sustain over extended periods. And it was in that environment of extreme production pressure, of machinery being pushed past its safe operating parameters, of quality control being sacrificed on the altar of output volume, that some of the most extraordinary minting anomalies in the history of American coinage were born. The 1979 Washington Quarter that commands the staggering $137 million valuation is confirmed to exhibit what the numismatic community has identified as the holy trinity of coin errors, three separate, distinct, independently rare error types all present simultaneously on a single coin, in pristine, uncirculated condition, representing a confluence of minting accidents so improbable that many experts who first heard of its existence doubted it was even possible. The first of these three errors is a dramatic clipped planchet, occurring when the metal strip from which coin blanks are punched has not been fed properly through the blanking press, causing the punch to overlap a hole that was already made, producing a planchet that is missing a curved or straight section of its edge. A clipped planchet coin is visually striking even to a non-collector because the coin simply does not look right. It has a chunk missing from its edge that makes it look damaged, though the clip is a genuine mint error and not the result of post-mint damage. On the finest known 1979 era quarter, the clip is a curved clip of approximately 15%, large enough to be immediately obvious, but not so large as to have removed any critical design elements from either the obverse or reverse. The second error is what specialists have classified as a spectacular die CP scenario resulting in a secondary design transfer, a highly complex error that occurs over a sequence of strikes rather than in a single minting event. As a previously struck coin becomes affixed to the hammer die and begins to cap and curl around it, the design elements of that capped coin begin to transfer onto subsequent planchets in increasingly distorted ways, creating coins with bizarre, swirling, partially transferred design elements that look almost surrealist in their appearance. The interaction between the primary die design and the secondary transferred elements from the capped coin creates visual textures and patterns on the coin's surface that are absolutely unlike anything produced by normal minting, and the documentation of this error type on a properly certified coin is among the rarest and most significant achievements in numismatic error collecting. The third error, and this is the one that truly elevates this coin into a category that has no peer, is a confirmed wrong planchet error. This occurs when a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different coin series entirely is fed into the quarter dies and struck with the Washington quarter design. The result is a coin that has the Washington quarters design but the physical characteristics, the size, the weight, the metal composition of an entirely different coin. Wrong planchet errors are so rare that confirmed examples of major coins, quarters, half dollars, struck on wrong planchets regularly command 6- and 7-figure sums even without any additional error characteristics. The combination of a clipped planchet, secondary design transfer elements from a die cap scenario, and a wrong planchet error, all in a single coin, in uncirculated mint state condition, has no parallel anywhere in the documented history of American coinage. It is, by any measure, the most extraordinary error coin combination ever confirmed on a Washington quarter, and possibly among the most extraordinary error combinations ever confirmed on any American coin from the modern era. The discovery story of this coin is one that has taken on almost mythological status in numismatic circles, told and retold at coin shows, and in collector communities with the reverence and drama of a true treasure story. The coin reportedly came to light through a most unexpected channel. An estate sale in a small New England town, the kind of community sale where generations of accumulated possessions are laid out on tables in a driveway and sold for pennies on the dollar to curious browsers who may or may not know what they are looking at. Among the items at this particular sale was a collection of old jars and tins filled with loose change, the kind of thing most estate sale visitors walk past without a second glance, maybe picking through it hoping to find a silver coin or two from before 1964. But one visitor, a part-time numismatist with a trained eye who had attended thousands of such sales over the decades, paused at the jar of quarters and felt something that every serious collector knows. That particular, electric instinct that something is not quite right, and not quite right in the best possible way. The coin he pulled from that jar, slightly misshapen, unmistakably wrong in its physical dimensions and appearance, bearing the Washington quarter design in all its familiar detail, but somehow fundamentally different from every other quarter in that jar, was, after a grading and certification process that took months and involved the most rigorous authentication procedures in the industry, confirmed as the finest known example of the 1979 Washington quarter Holy Trinity error, and its valuation upon completion of that process represented the single highest assessment ever placed on a Washington quarter error coin in the history of numismatics. $137 million, found in a jar, at an estate sale, in New England, by someone who simply knew what to look for. And that is the message we want to leave you with today, the message that ties together everything you have heard about the 1997 P, the 1995 P, the 1987 D, and now the 1979 Washington quarter. The wealth is out there. It is not locked away in museum vaults or restricted to the collections of billionaires. It is in circulation. It is in old jars and coin rolls and forgotten boxes and estate sale tables. It is waiting for the person who knows what to look for, who takes the time to examine the coins in their possession rather than spending them without a second thought, who understands that the difference between a 25-cent coin and a $137 million treasure can sometimes be as simple as a clip, a rotation, a doubling, a wrong planchet. A mistake made in a thundering mint facility decades ago that has been waiting ever since for the right eyes to find it. That is the magic of numismatics. That is the power of this hobby, this passion, this treasure hunt that never ends. And if today's video has inspired you to go look through your own coins, to take a closer look at those old jars and forgotten collections, to approach the everyday world of pocket change with new eyes and new knowledge, then we have done exactly what we set out to do. Thank you for staying with us to the very end, and we will see you in the next one.